Clubhouse.
About 3 weeks ago, I found a dead body on our property. It floated over from the Ten Pedal. Well, I took care of it. But we need to be careful with this family.
Why didn't you tell me?
Peace, I guess.
Oh, peace will have to wait.
Welcome to Pod Clubhouse's coverage of Dutton Ranch, the newest entry into the Yellowstone universe of shows. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing episode 5 of Dutton Ranch, the mid-season episode. It was called Peaceful Find Peace. Tonight's episode was written by Casey Scott and directed by Jessica Lowery. Like many of this season's writers, Casey Scott previously wrote episodes on Taylor Sheridan's, it wasn't strictly a spinoff, but it was in the Western universe of Taylor Sheridan shows, Lawman Bass Reeves.
Just a community note, please join us on Facebook in the Yellowstone 1923-1883, the Madison and Dutton Ranch discussion and news group to discuss Dutton Ranch and the whole universe of Taylor Sheridan and Yellowstone shows. Just a reminder, we assumed you've watched this show, so we are not going to go step by step, but we will absolutely spoil you, so please put us on pause and go watch the episode if you don't want to be spoiled. Then come on back.
All right, Caroline, we are at the midway point with this episode. This may be my favorite in the season so far.
I agree. I think that the title would have been more aptly named like The Chaotic Find Chaos.
You know, the pursuit of peace didn't really seem to last too long.
Yeah, I don't even think that was like an authentic run looking for peace, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we're ending this episode with Beth literally saying, I think peace has to wait. And she kind of smirks a little bit, which is a little unnerving. Just some other preliminaries. I mean, we're going to explore the whole idea of peace. There's a conversation between her and Zachariah that really gets it on the head. So just in case there was ambiguity from last episode, they have killed the entire herd. I think I was very unclear because they had mentioned maybe quarantining the herd. So I maybe sillily or foolishly had left out hope that some of the herd was left alive. But it seems like they went whole hog on destroying the herd.
Absolutely. When they were standing there and it was completely quiet and there was nothing to look at, it was like very clear at that point that no one was left.
This episode was very interesting because there was a lot of parallel writing. There was a very parallel day. Beth and Rip, they both ended up spending the day investigating an enemy, though Rip didn't really seem, I don't think he intended to spend his day investigating an enemy, but he did. I think Beth very intentionally spent the day investigating Beulah and Ten Pedal and the Jacksons. They also found themselves infiltrated into their organization by the end of the episode. And they both had very noted discussions to third parties about the other. Rip has a conversation about who Beth is to Beulah, and Beth has a conversation about who Rip is to Everett. When the episode was finished, I sat back and it was the very first thing I thought about. It was like interesting. It was an interesting approach to kind of package this mid-season episode.
I was very relieved that there was a lot less teen drama and a lot more corporate espionage. I appreciate that about the Yellowstone universe much more than I care about what 19-year-olds are up to.
Yeah, this felt much more like what I think we hope we get every week from this show.
Agreed. If they can just do this and keep doing this, I am a big fan.
Let's start with Beth and Rip together. They start the episode together. They end the episode together. It does seem that Beth must have filled Rip in on her confrontation with Carter. Were you surprised that his response was, I'm going to go get that boy and smack him? Or, I mean, because his response is, just give him time for him to come around. That's a very measured response that I don't know that we would expect from Rip.
I didn't need violence, but I also thought it was a little bit too hands-off for me. For as protective as Rip is, to sort of have the advice of just like, well, that's your problem. And he'll come around at some point. Felt a little bit too hands off. Like, we're supposed to be parents together and we're supposed to be doing this together. And if I have a problem with him, you should have a problem with him. And so I wouldn't have wanted to play out that way. I would have wanted my partner to get involved and want to talk to Carter and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing with Beth? And what are you doing in general? I would not appreciate him just sort of just being like, oh, well, that's too bad for you. He'll figure it out.
The interesting thing is, yes, I know she had this conversation with Carter at the end of the last episode, but on the whole, her and Rip seem really checked out, actually, what's going on with him day to day. I know they have a lot of catastrophic things that they're trying to stay on top of, but, I mean, Carter's going to leave at 4:30 in the morning right after Rip gets in his truck and go with his silly backpack, like he's still carrying the pretense of his backpack. No one sees him go. No one hears him leave at 4:30 in the morning. Like, they're just very checked out on his movements.
Yeah, I agree with that. They are checked out. But at the same time, the Carter that we knew before would have been trustworthy. He would have been somebody who would have been doing the right things and making the right choices. We have to give a little bit of latitude that this version of Carter is new, and the breaking rules and sort of going... Not minding Beth, not caring about what Rip says and stuff. This isn't the Carter we know. Even though I think that Beth should have had her hackles up by Oriana being in their house and everything, and should have been a little bit more paying attention. I don't know how much they can do. And I don't know how much this is a parenting issue as much as it's like, if Carter is supposed to be like a ranch hand, right, in some way in your world, like you guys kind of decided to be parents to him. Like Rip was always his foreman, regardless of whether he was also supposed to be his father. From that point of view, it kind of bugs me that Rip is being so hands off.
Other than the table conversation where Carter's asking him about girls, I don't think they've even had a one-on-one conversation in this season. And I think the only real interaction that we've seen them have is during that flashback with Jeannie Edwards when he says, I'm going to go help the boy saddle the horse. Mm-hmm. Rip and Carter have had no screen time together at all. I mean, he hasn't had a ton with Beth, but he's had none with Rip.
Yeah, and I mean, I mentioned to you that I thought that while there is not a herd, Rip still should be acting as the foreman of the ranch. And it was surprising to me that there wasn't a list left for Azul and Zachariah to be doing, and Carter too, for that matter. I understand he's supposed to be at school, but my guys are out in high school at 2:15 in the afternoon. Most kids are out in the middle of the day. So I don't understand why there wouldn't be a chore list and things that would be expected of Carter and the other guys. I know that Rip is underwater here, and we're going to give all the grace that him and Beth just went through the worst day ever, and they are now trying to pick this all up. But I'm kind of surprised that he just kind of walked away from the Dutton Ranch well, y'all run yourself, figure it all out.
Yeah, and he's not keeping school hours. He's coming home later than they are, just about every night, it seems like. Yes, I agree with you that this is very much a new Carter, that they may not know to be keeping tabs on him, but they're also not keeping tabs on him at all.
And at the Yellowstone, there was no keeping tabs. Where were you going? Everyone was just on the Yellowstone land. And again, this is not like they've been his parents for 19 years. This is relatively new to them. And they really always treated him as a little adult, even at 14. Right. I mean, the things that were expected of him, the way he was spoken to, the way he was treated was not as a child. It was very much as you need to kind of buck up and do your part and learn your responsibilities, and we will take care of you. But it was never parental baby kind of relationship. This is all very new for all three of them.
Let's talk about Beth's day. We see her reading 3 separate articles throughout the day. Just so you guys don't have to pause it, we did the work for you. The first one is called Exotic Game as a Dangerous Business, Legal and Ethical Issues Facing Hunting Lodges Across America, from the Texas Journal, November 11th, 2007. The second was Is 2008 to 2009 Drought a Taste of Texas's Climate Future? Listed from the Lone Star Climate News, article by Bradley Haviland, March 11th, 2009. And the third one was Beef Prices Hit Record Highs as Cattle Inventory Drops to 1950s Levels, listed from 7 News. I thought this was super interesting because I had no idea why she was spending her day looking at these different things. So it was a really interesting payoff when we see her talk to Beulah, which we'll get to in a minute. But I can't wait for this episode to drop. We're recording this way in advance of actually when this episode will come out, because there are corresponding articles in real life and a YouTube video that you can watch on all three of these things. These were all pulled from real life articles. In some cases, they just changed the source, but the article was the same. All very real, relevant news from the same time frames as when the show was pulling them from. This was the plan. I mean, her and Zechariah talk, and he's like, I hope whatever you're working on is going to work. And she's like, I better fucking work. Did you have any inkling of how this was going to play out? Because I did not.
I did not know that the Jacksons were tied into what she was reading. I thought she was just basically trying to understand what was going on, what was the history of the area, what does she need to sort of look at in terms of like who managed to make it through when things were rough, what type of business techniques had been used in order to keep a ranch running when beef might be in a bad situation. I was familiar with the exotic game stuff, and I live in Texas, so I'm very familiar with the drought. Our town is called the Livable Forest, and we lost a tremendous amount of trees due to that drought. So we are very, very aware as an entire town about that drought. I was feeling like, are we just becoming better acquainted and trying to come up with a business strategy that can use these past articles as a way to figure out like who survived these different situations and who didn't, and what can you do with a ranch beyond just having a herd of cattle on it? That's kind of what I thought she was looking at, the exotic game. Like, I was like, is she thinking we could do that?
And opening up an exotic game thing, because now you've got all this land and no cattle on it.
Right. And like, was that an issue? And so the fact that she was reading like the legal and ethical issues, I thought she was just, again, educating herself about what the different choices were and how things like that would be received in the area. That's where I went. I never made the connection that these things together would have anything to do with the Jacksons.
Let's play our first conversation, our first clip of the episode. This is Beth and Zechariah discussing the elusive nature of peace and God's mysteries.
Take away something you see every day. The sun, birds, wind even. The brain can't quite catch up.
Is it 15 years you were inside? It's a long fucking time. What you miss the most?
Lots of things. But mostly the peace and quiet of a lonely night.
Yeah, I'd miss that. Not sure I'm meant for peace, though.
Me neither. But they say God's ways are mysterious.
Yeah. Mystery's right out there. For me, anyway. Right here.
Land's as good a God as any. Maybe better.
We keep looking then.
Keep trying, that's for sure.
I think there's a couple things to take away there. I think the end is very important for these characters. The keep trying, keep looking, for ways forward, and certainly keep trying. That's all these two know how to do. And the misfits that they've assembled, Azul and Zechariah, Carter for his troubled youth, and certainly Beth and Rip and all they've been through with the Yellowstone, and John and everything they experienced in Montana. It's all a system of keep looking for a way forward and keep trying. You just got to keep hitting the rock and hope it breaks for you one day.
I think another way to look at this one too is how much, again, if you've watched a lot of the shows, if you watched 1883, if you watched 1923, the concept of hope. And, we can use the word God in this scenario, but the big message, I think, is to keep hope and keep that there's a bigger plan and that you can keep persevering. The hope part, you remember so much about them talking about the danger of hope and keeping this idea of hope alive can be difficult during times when everything is going so wrong. It can also tie you up in knots in a way that you don't think of hope as a bad thing ever. There's a way that it can sort of play out where you're suffering through hope. really put that together, right?
I was just watching an episode of Marshalls, actually, and Chairman Rainwater, who is the very best part of that show, him and Mo, he was talking about how hope on the res is a two-way sword. That, hope keeps your spirit afloat, waiting, but it also keeps your spirit waiting. And when it breaks against you, it's just like a dagger. It's like a knife to you. I feel like we have said the word hope on this podcast already for this show more than maybe any other. When Rip it breaks down and says it's all gone, and she's like, we'll start again. And what little brown cow represented and what this horse represented that's returned to her in this episode from Everett. These are all symbols of hope, and it's all symbols of keep trying. And
also
God's mystery.
feels like our me and you also just sort of playing into it in terms of grasping for straws for hope.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we had to find symbols like little brown cow and the horse from the first episode and stuff like that. Like even we are like, but, but there's still that and there's still this. And, I can understand with Zachariah having come out of prison, there's so many things you would have to do in order to keep your spirit alive when you're in prison and to keep yourself as a human being intact. Your psyche, your heart, your just general emotional state, that having hope and finding religion and doing things that can make you look forward to the future when you're seemingly in an impossible, terrible situation is so important to make it through. So here we are, even doing the podcast, seeking for anything that we can be like, look, let's all stare at that and pretend like that's the thing that's going to get us through.
Right. Beth is very pragmatic in this episode, but she's like, I don't think I'm meant for peace. Or maybe it's good to have goals, but they're aspirational at best. But she admits to herself in this episode, finally, because I think she has to, you said chaotic finds the chaos. That's much more their speed, because peaceful cannot find the peace. Not these two anyway.
I also think what we said in that first episode still holds true, that they are too big of risk takers. They are willing to do things that other people aren't, including everything in this episode that we see them do. Like they are willing to put themselves out there and do things. And when you do that, peace does not follow, because there's very few risky situations that come with a calm heart. That's not what risk brings. But risk brings reward, and it is a lot of ways that they've managed to get through to like squeak by to the next situation and manage to be okay. It's their inherent nature of not just chaos, and I know I was being like sassy in saying that, but the way that they are willing to go the extra step and do something that is so far beyond what most of us would do. Like I can't imagine ever working for Beulah. I can't imagine what it took for Rip to go in there and be willing to run her ranch. I know he doesn't have the history with Beulah that Beth does. His is sort of secondhand, whatever, because of issues with that Beth has had, run-ins that she's had. At the same time, there had to have been a big like swallowing of his pride to go over and offer that to her.
That's a perfect segue, because that's what the point of this conversation is between Beth and Everett. I'm going to play this clip now, because that's what they're getting at. What Rip is willing to do to provide for his family, but also just to get to the next thing so that they can keep trying and can keep hoping.
But he's doing it for us.
Well, he's got a family to take care of. He's a lucky man.
I'm not sure about that. That man has lost more than he'd ever admit. He devoted his life to the Yellowstone. This place was supposed to be his time. His ranch. He is smart. He listens, he leads. Beulah's the lucky one.
Beulah got you worried?
I don't fucking trust her.
Well, she is complicated. But the truth of the matter is, she needs a decent foreman. And she's burned through 3 in the past year alone.
She won't burn through Rip.
I hope not.
She won't.
Oh, when she says this ranch, this is supposed to be his time, I felt that, because I feel like that was the point of this show. This was finally supposed to be Beth and Rip getting out of the Yellowstone shadow, getting out of John Dutton's shadow, getting out of Montana's shadow, and finally having it be their time to do it their way and build their empire. And here we are 5 episodes in, and he has to don his Yellowstone work shirt and Yellowstone coat and go be a foreman for someone else's ranch again. It is heartbreaking. Given last episode and that very intimate moment of sharing history between Everett and Beulah, is Everett actually a safe place here for Beth to so boldly admit to Everett that she doesn't trust Beulah?
I think it was one of several conversations where I was kind of hunching my shoulders, like, you're saying too much to the wrong person. She doesn't know the relationship between Everett and Beulah. Everett has been a very nice man to Beth. And that's kind of what I was talking about in our last episode when I was like, I think his closeness with Beulah is actually very much revealing that he is not this nice old grandpa that he has presented himself to Beth and Rip as. The guy who can hang out with Beulah at that level, and he even said he has his own demons, he's got more stuff going on. There's more layers than just this simple singing along with the radio grandpa that he is acting as if he is. Beth is taking him at face value that it's okay to just talk off the cuff to him, but I felt the same exact way when Rip starts talking about Beth to Beulah. My body tensed up so hard when she said, "Tell me about Beth." I was like, I can't believe he's going to say even one sentence. It felt so gross and horrible. Like, please, no matter how nice or whatever you say, it's not going to feel good that you're talking about her at all. And I felt the same way when Beth was talking about Rip to Beulah. No matter what she says, they shouldn't be talking with these people about whomever they're speaking about. And so this happened for me 3 times over in the episode. Do you think that Everett, given his history with Beulah, do you think he truly is this simple, calm, easygoing grandpa guy?
The first couple interactions where Beulah came up and his first interaction with her in the graveyard, he was very standoffish, and it seemed very much like that she is bad news and stay away. But as the show's gone on, as episode 4 progressed, they went and had that conversation. Even though he had been lied to and lured there, they had a very not confrontational conversation. Remember, he said at the end of it, "I think we have too many demons to stand in the way of ever us being together, don't you think?" And she's like, "I can't argue with that." And he goes, "You can't?" Like, he was sad that she wasn't going to try and fight for them trying to make it work. That gives me a lot of pause. And now we're having this conversation where he's actually really advocating for Rip to go be a good foreman at Tempetal because Beulah needs a good foreman.
Yeah, but so who's he advocating for?
It sounds like he's advocating for Beulah.
Right. He's not really advocating for Rip and Beth and their life. What he's really doing is trying to help Beulah. Yeah. And he realizes that there's an asset here at the Dutton Ranch who he knows the secrets and knows that this guy doesn't have anything to do here. For me, like, what I'm saying is, like, I'm starting to change my lens on him. Before, the singing to himself in the truck and his kind of sedate personality came off very calming, very nurturing, very loving. But now when I see him and when he's talking, I get more of this like sedated wild animal where, like, yeah, he's sedated and he's singing, but it's like you could come around the corner and his face could be in like a messed up grin where you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I thought the singing was in a good place, but now when I'm looking at you, I'm getting this like creepier vibe that, like, you've done stuff, seen stuff, definitely hung out with questionable people. I'm a little bit more worried about you. Like, you could actually twist up on us by the end of this series or season, either one, and turn out to be a really villainous guy, which, hey, anyone who watched Westworld, this guy, he's got villain inside of him. And so to watch him play this anti-role, which we talked about in episode 1, I was like, it's very surprising to have him play this role of this grandfather figure instead of playing a villain. Maybe we talked ourselves into the grandfather stuff when the villain was right in front of our faces.
I don't know. I mean, I think they did a good job. All of our initial reactions with him were the grandfatherly. He has that tenderness.
But against our own intuition is what I'm saying.
Sure, but we saw
against who Ed Harris plays, right, against what he's capable of playing, against all those parts, we told ourselves, no, he's just taking this Hallmark movie grandpa role. And on the inside, though, we were both grappling, like, but that's not who Ed Harris
Classically,
plays.
he shows up, he's the guy who did it, right? Ed Harris is a guy you play morally ambiguous villain at best, if not outright evil villain.
So then I'm shifting my arrow. Like if my arrow was all the way to calm, sedate grandpa, I'm at least coming back to neutral. I'm not saying I'm going all the way to villain yet, but I'm at least coming back to neutral to say, hang on a second. I think we were played, and I think we didn't know his history. And I think now that more is being revealed, he has the potential to be a lot more trouble than we
and
thought.
Listeners, even go back a couple of minutes and replay the conversation, the clip I just played. He says, you don't trust Beulah, or you're worried about Beulah, and Beth says, I just don't fucking trust her. And he laughs, and he doesn't say, yeah, man, stay away from her, she's bad news, which I feel like episode 1 or 2 Everett would have had said things like, yeah, I steer my friends in a direction away from her, right? Because that's what he says when looking for a recommendation for a slaughterhouse. Like, he wants nothing to do with it.
Or he's not their vet either.
Right. Doc Sturgis is their vet, right? Like, he has nothing to do with them. Here, though, in this conversation, Go play that conversation where we are now with Everett. He laughs at that response and says, well, she can be complicated.
Complicated.
That's a very different story,
TV
Everett.
word. Y'all, listeners, y'all pick up on that. Complicated means this man still got one foot in her bed and is very much interested in not acting like, oh no, she's just evil. Like, y'all need to pay attention to this. There is more of a game afoot.
Listen to that conversation between the two of them at the end of it. Again, we played the clip of it. You could hear the hitch in his voice. It goes up. You can't argue with it. Like he wanted her to argue for them being together. Let's do our last Beth on her own here. This is her very long story, or a very long conversation with Beulah, which she shows up literally just as Rip leaves. They must have passed each other on the road. This was a 7-minute scene that I had to cut down to like a minute and a half. Just for the background, in case you guys don't remember, was first she comes in and she is flattering Beulah about the weight of running this ranch. My father couldn't do it. It killed him, but you seem to do it with grace. Then she's going to drop the hammer, and that's what we're going to hear about what she knows about the ranch. And then she's going to sell herself as the problem and savior for the ranch. If Beulah just hires Beth, in 3 years, she's going to make 10 Pedal a household name and a recession-proof business. 20% of the profits, 5 years, her and Rip are out. Dutton name is off the table. That's your background. Let's take a listen to this clip.
But the burden of it, that's all yours, isn't it? But you don't carry it, the weight of it, like him. Thank you. You seem unflappable. Effortless.
Well, men have the luxury of being unapologetically themselves. For women, it's a bit more complicated.
It doesn't have to be. How about you and I speak truthfully? But your family's blood is in that dirt, so I get why you want to protect it. I understand the lengths you will go to achieve that. In 07, you and your son, you must have been so fucking desperate. You turned this place into a game lodge for trophy hunters. You welcomed in any son of a bitch with a blank check and a empty space on his wall. In 2010, South Texas suffered the worst drought in a century. Turned this place to fucking dust. You almost lost everything, but you didn't. It was impressive. But since then, Beulah, you have been over-leveraged and undercapitalized. This place is held together with tape and baling wire. You are easy prey, Beulah. And you know it.
Beth reveals that Foot and Mouth claimed their entire herd and they had to destroy it. I have a reason for why she would do this, but what's your reaction to that? Is that just part of, Beth, you are giving away too much information to people you should not be giving information to?
No, I said it in the last episode, but I think that anytime that you get in bed with somebody like this, you have to have some mutual destruction information. They're not going to trust you to share their secrets if you're not willing to share something about yours. So you have to show some vulnerability, show your belly a little bit, show that you've got skin in the game, and then hopefully they're willing to share some of their secrets. And you just got to kind of hope that their secrets outweigh yours, and that at some point you can explain away yours and get them on theirs. So this felt very much like the right setup to get Beulah where she wants her, which seems like while this is a very good offer and everything that she's saying, her behavior later speaks to this whole other idea of like, she has no intention in going through with all of this stuff. This is all just selling her so that she's like the Trojan horse. She just comes in and gathers up a bunch of information and then is going to bail out of there. Like this looks very pretty, but I don't think she's going to do any of this.
Which, if they have done their research on Beth, they will know this is right out of her game plan from original Yellowstone. She does this exact thing with market equities.
If only they watched Yellowstone, Mike. If only Beulah watched Yellowstone.
I think 3 separate times this episode we heard about how legendary the name Dutton was and how everyone seems to know everything about the Yellowstone Ranch. Do you know about Market Equity's attempt to build a snow ski lodge and market it to make it a mass tourist destination? Because Beth takes a job with them specifically to learn their plans for Paradise Valley so that she can then bring them down from the inside. Like, it's literally, she's doing exact same thing that she did up in Montana here.
Okay, so hit pause for just a second on that. So then now let's zoom back out of the story and cast our eyes to the writer's room and say, hey, what are you doing? This is the same storyline as Market Equities. Chad Feehan, like, are you trying to feed us this? Like we're all going to be tricked into thinking that Beth is going to work for Beulah for 5 years? Do you think you're going to trick a savvy Yellowstone watcher to think that this is what Beth's going to do? What do you think? I mean, do you think Chad just sort of lifted this? I mean, you're saying the playbook of Beth, but I'm saying this is the playbook of Taylor Sheridan, and Chad Feehan lifted out of someone else's playbook.
I think that is definitely what they're doing here. I think if you were to ask them, my guess is they would be like, this is just how Beth goes about her business. This is her way.
She's just one note. That's what they would say.
That's the only way you could defend it, right?
I think Chad might say that, but if I was Taylor, I'd be like, I mean, hey, Chad's not here for season 2. So I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm a little looking at the writer's room. Like, the whole idea of bringing a spinoff and the whole idea of bringing a new show out is that you've got a new story to tell, right? And it's worth it because we're going to bring back these characters and we have a new chapter and a new thing. So to have Beth just rerun an episode of Yellowstone and just change the corporation name is a little bit eyebrow raising for me.
I agree. I'm curious to see how they play it out. I hope they do find something inventive. I hope there's some twist. Let's listen to this clip between Beulah and Joaquin, because Beth is now out of the room. And again, Beulah has had a lot of drink because she's starting to slur. Every time she seems to talk to Joaquin, she's got a little bit of a slur in her, a little bit of a drink. I feel like Joaquin should come home earlier to catch his adopted mother. It doesn't seem like Beulah's onto this ruse. Beulah seems like she leaves that conversation with Beth exactly where Beth wanted her. And I think you're right. That's exactly why she told her about the foot and mouth disease. She had to play up, I am vulnerable and desperate. So I'm coming to you because I don't have anything else. I can help you. I am a solution for you. Also, I have laid my cards bare. Like, this is my job. Like, this is all I have now, is if you come take me on.
Bigger than that, not just I'm desperate. I'm going to give you ammunition against me. And that's an important part. That is the meat of it. It's not just I'm desperate and we need a job and all that kind of stuff, because that's too humble and too weak even for Beth. Like, even in Beth in this situation, that's too much. It's important that I'm going to give you ammunition that you can then use on me. So therefore, I'm going to keep it on the level. What Beulah doesn't know is Beth doesn't mind being in trouble. She actually doesn't care much about being in trouble. That's the part that she's missing. She assumes that Beth wouldn't want that information to get out about the hurt and everything, which we all agree in theory is true. But Beth is also the type of person who would go around town saying, yeah, and so what? And I'm going to pay the fine or whatever it is, and we're all going to move on. She doesn't know that Beth has the wherewithal to go through some sort of scandal and come out the other side.
That's A. And B, Beth doesn't mind using herself as bait either. But if Beulah was really paying attention between the lines in that conversation, she would have taken note at the fact that Beth hard stop said, no Dutton name ever. That is not a part of this. What you're getting out of this is me, Beth, but you are not getting the Dutton name. She expressly and explicitly carved that out. If I'm Beulah, that gives me pause. If you're so desperate and you're giving me this mutually assured blackmail information I can use against you, this is where you're drawing the line?
To be fair, Beulah's not taking this as mutually assured
Right,
destruction.
of course, right.
Because she's not thinking that she's got, she's not thinking her shit stinks,
right? She thinks Beth
so
just handed her all this
worried.
ammo. She thinks that she's got Beth exactly where she wants her. But she never stops to think, why did she then draw such a hard line about the Dutton name? That should have been something that stuck in Beulah's craw a little bit more. But it doesn't seem to, because this is the conversation she has with Joaquin right after Beth leaves.
Why was she here?
Beth works for me now.
Are you out of your mind?
We're diversifying. Premium certified Angus, ranch to table.
We don't invite strangers into this business.
You're not a cattleman, Keno. Rip Wheeler is.
Oh, man.
And Beth, she's a fucking Dutton. She's like a cockroach after an atomic bomb. A fighter, a survivor. Yellowstone was under constant assault. She held the front line for years.
You are making a very dangerous assumption about what they're willing to or not willing to do.
Rip and Beth have secrets, and I've learned people with secrets can be useful. Corruptible, even.
Ya no más juegos.
People with secrets can be useful and they can be corrupted. But again, she doesn't know these players. That seems pretty sincere to me, that Beulah's not thinking there's ulterior motives here. Are you taking the same way? When she says diversifying all slurred, I actually laughed out loud just listening to that clip now.
Here's a couple of things about this. As someone who would be in charge of such a large empire that Beulah is, and she said for, 190 years, I felt like it was kind of unrealistic that she would take on Rip and Beth in the same day with no even sleep on it kind of thing. Fine on Rip, because she kind of needed to deal with the bunkhouse immediately because just the day-to-day operations weren't working out. But there was no reason why she needed to accept Beth's offer and hire her on that night. There's something more at play here. Like you said, the drinking issue seems very clear, that she is making these decisions in a very raw, vulnerable kind of way that's what are you doing? Why would you just hire her on basically in the middle of the night? That's a strange way to do business when you have an empire that large. And I feel like that was the response we were getting out of Joaquin.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? You had one drink with her and you're now in bed with her? That's too fast and too wild. I understand everything that's going on with Joaquin's brain here, and a little surprised at Beulah, because that just seems awfully fast without a whole lot of consideration for a lot of things. There's no way that a contract was drawn up. There's no way that anything was listed out. And I would even think that Beth would require all that. So maybe we're just going with it was a handshake deal that Beth was hired, but clearly there has to be more here, right?
The vehemence with which she's defending Beth and Rip in that conversation to Joaquin is astonishing. You're not a cattleman, Keno. Rip is. He knows. He ran the Yellowstone for 4 times as large as our 2 ranches combined, and Beth is a fucking Dutton. It was almost like she was fangirling over them to Joaquin. I mean, Beth is a very persuasive woman. I mean, it's one of the things I think Rip described her as in that conversation, or is going to describe her when we get to their dinner scene. She seems to bought in whole hog here. He says no more games in Spanish as he's like disgusted and walks away. And maybe he's just waiting that when she sleeps it off and wakes up in the next day, maybe he can talk more sense into her. This feels like a conversation that will be revisited. It is astonishing to me that Beulah went all in on both of these people that she doesn't know in the same day. It may explain Rob Will and Oriana's behavior because this is how Beulah is behaving.
At the very least, it feels extremely impulsive. And maybe we're missing something here, Mike. I mean, maybe I want to pump the brakes a little bit and say, maybe we should realize that it's heavily unrealistic that this empire would just suddenly be turned over to both Rip and Beth. And she would be so willing to start defending them. Like, maybe there's more layers here because there's something else. Now, you brought up the medical thing. Like, maybe she is legitimately sick. You know, she's talked about like her final ride and she's talking about being so tired.
It comes up
and
in the
stuff
conversation with Beth, right? She says, I'm going to leave you with enough money to leave for your granddaughter whenever you decide to hang it up.
But that's just retirement. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like this idea that there's like an urgency. Right. I'm exhausted right now. I'm not just going to my retirement party like dancing. I'm running out of steam, you know? And if you're running out of steam and you're making decisions like this, like I'll just throw a dart. Like, do you have a brain tumor, Beulah? Do you have something that's going on with you that is maybe making you make wildly outlandish decisions and constantly be saying that you're so tired and you feel like there's this weight of everything? Like, I don't know, that feels like there's something else. And you brought up the medical thing several, episodes ago. So maybe that's it. And maybe we'll start to feel like a lot of compassion for her and her decision making will be much more understandable. But right now, it makes so little sense that she would go all in with these two. I'm really like, where's the other shoe that's about to drop?
The two angles to keep track of for listeners and for us also as we proceed through here. One is what Joaquin says in that conversation. I think you're overestimating what they will be willing to do or not do in pursuit of this ranch, which is not their own. And two, there's a Mariano factor at play here because one of Beth's key plan is, she says it in that conversation in the longer clip I couldn't have, is your Mexican crossbreeds, your 2,200 cattle Mexican crossbreeds ain't going to cut it. We got to get new cattle to put you where I want to put you in the highest end Vegas, New York, and LA steakhouses. Well, if Mariano is who we think he is and is using this Mexican crossbreed cattle for what we think he's using them for, I think he will finally say that you don't have sole dominion over the ranching business, Beulah, because now your decisions and this new woman you hired that no one knows, and my son Joaquin says is a complete stranger and enemy, is saying we're getting rid of these cattle, that we will not be taking them across the border anymore. That's going to be a problem for Mariano. So that's a whole other angle here. Beulah is making decisions that I don't think she fully appreciates the ramifications of if she is actually going to try and let Beth do what Beth says she's going to do.
But the question is, beyond that, is the why of it. Why doesn't she understand the ramifications? This is a woman who has been a part of this empire her entire life, and this empire has existed for almost 200 years.
Is there something in her saying, and it's in the beginning of the clip that we played, men get to do what men want without ramification, but women have to do it a little bit differently? Is it so powerful for her? Because we saw her bring this point up to Oriana when they had their first confrontation at the dinner table, when Oriana said she had already drank her dinner. She's telling her, you have to be perfect if you're going to run this place, because she's a woman, not because she's not for any other reason, because she's a woman. And then she's telling the same kind of thing, that women have to do it differently than men and have to do it better than men. Does she see someone in such a kindred spirit in Beth immediately, which I think pops off the page? I think Beth pops off the page as strong, badass woman. Is there something that she's bucking against? Because even though she says she is in charge of this ranch, clearly Mariano has some influence on what's happening on this ranch. And she's got Rob Will, and she's got Joaquin, and she's got Wes, and she's got all these other men bumbling A to Z. And she's got Everett, who had left her at some point, or at least they were not together for some period of time. So she's got a whole long line of men who are messy and problematic for her. Could it be just that Beth is this beacon of woman who gets it in the dark that she wants to latch onto?
I think it would be extremely dangerous to run a business based on gender. I mean, that's a really strange way to make a decision. I'm taking it differently. What she's saying is we have to sit here under the guise of having a drink. We have to sit here under the guise of being like Susie Homemaker, meeting the neighbors and talking to each other instead of talking business like men would. Men would come in and say, I'm here to talk about, look how she talked to Rip. I'm here to talk about business, and this is what we're going to do. And boom, 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 boom. Not a bunch of niceties. We don't have to sit here and drink a drink, and she doesn't have to bring over your favorite drink and all that stuff. Like, there was a lot of frilly nonsense that was going on rather than Beth walking in and saying, I've got a business proposition for you. Take a seat. Let's talk. That's what a man would do. That's what I think she was saying. And I understand what you're talking about. Like, yeah, she's dealing with a bunch of bumbling men. Joaquin does not seem that way, though. Wes didn't seem that way. Austin doesn't seem that way. Like, she doesn't have only bumbling men around her. She's got select ones who are pretty horrible and are kind of coloring the whole thing. Beth bites back at her right away about that men's comment and be like, actually, we can speak bluntly. So let's just talk. We don't actually have to pretend we're having a tea party here and sort of speak out of the side of our mouth in cliches that sort of talking about, like, talk around business. We can just talk business. So that's what I think the point of that whole thing was. Unless, like, I'm willing to get in bed with you because you're a woman. If that's the way she's doing business, again, I'm saying, wow, that is a really terrible way to do it. If you don't understand that women can be just as vicious, then Beulah, you have sadly underestimated your fellow woman here. Maybe it's just because she's only dealt with men for the most of her career that someone could sneak right in a dress and then you think they're not as bad. But later she describes them as cockroaches and basically that they can survive anything. So she's very uneven. That's really what I want to say is, as a listener, I want you to pay attention to how uneven Beulah is with her decision making. She's got a lot of rules. She dislikes the idea of Oriana drinking her dinner, yet she's slurring her words. She's sending her kid off to rehab, yet she's over here drunk as all get out. So watch her uneven decision making and wonder, what is this coming from? Where is this coming from?
There was one thing more in that conversation that I wanted to poke at, because we were talking about Everett's role in all this. And I think Everett is in the shadows here with pulling a lot more strings. I mean, I think you and I have started to talk about it in this episode. Beth brings Oban 18, which turns out to be Beulah's favorite scotch. How did you know? We have a mutual friend, obviously talking about Everett. Beth drops the hammer on all of this information she knows, that they were using as a hunting lodge, that the drought almost put them out, that they are over leveraged and undercapitalized and have been struggling, and that they're easy prey. At the end of that, Beulah says, seems like Everett gave you more information than just my favorite scotch. And Beth says, no, I just know who you are. Is that true? Because that is a lot of specific information that Beth has that she was able to figure out in one day about the 10-Petal Ranch specifically. Do you think in that walk with the horse, there was more information given by Everett about Beulah that we didn't see?
I mean, there's no reason to think that conversation ended when the scene ended. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't have kept talking. They had that long drive all the way to San Antonio. They had the long drive back. Like, there's a fair shot that there's been a lot of conversation about what went on around here. What did ranches do at different points in time? What were tough times that the town had? You know, I mean, he's kind of a storytelling kind of guy. So, you know, for me, I think it's reasonable that she's putting together a lot. I also just think that using the historical information that she had by pulling these articles, it was just a reasonable deduction, a lot of the things that she was figuring out.
The hunting lodge was the one, but they have so many trophies around the house. Maybe wanting to be in the house was just kind of final confirmation on what she thought.
And here's the thing: if you are watching now, okay, so now us having this conversation, if you rewound and watched the episode again, when Rip came in and looked around and looked up at that Country Bear Jamboree wall of all those heads, and we already highlighted, why would you have a giant head on the wall of that steer? Why would you not just have his horns? That plus the article, we probably should have already deduced before Beth got there. Oh, I see. Big game hunting was going on, plus the Wall and the Jacksons, they were doing this, and we could have gotten there.
Right.
But, because they showed it in the reverse order, I was just taking it like Rip was like, what the hell? Everett makes the comment, what the rich will spend their money on. And I was like,
So he would know, again, right? He would obviously know. And,
we had the nuggets. We had the nuggets, though, as watchers.
A person who clearly cares about animals, if there is a dividing line, I'm sure a big game hunting operation would have been something that seemingly turned off Everett. So it would make sense that he would be more than willing to spill tea about that to Beth in a larger conversation about Beulah and how she is, quote unquote, complicated. Let's get to Rip's day, beginning with his interview with Beulah.
Well, Everett mentioned that I might be able to help you.
How? You ever foreman 2 properties?
All due respect, ma'am, your ranch and my ranch put together ain't a quarter what the Yellowstone is.
Oh, so you're a man with an appetite.
No, I'm just a man who likes to work.
Well, that's an attractive quality.
If you don't mind me asking, who is Rob Will?
My son. Y'all have met?
Briefly, yeah.
Well, let's just say he's on an indefinite vacation. Well, we've got 75,000 acres, about 2,200 head, Mexican crossbreed. We sell to big box retailers, but mismanagement has been a bit of a bugaboo of late.
Well, would you like me to fix your problem?
Well, I wonder, can you?
If it's ranching, I can, yes, ma'am.
My margins have grown razor thin. I need someone who implements efficiency. A man who works smarter, not just harder.
Well, I can do both.
I like a tight-lipped ship. Rio Paloma loves to gossip.
Well, ma'am, other people's business, it ain't mine.
Do whatever it takes to get my ranch in order, and I'll pay you handsomely. Not just with my money, but with my loyalty.
Okay, I know we talked about it last week, and I don't want to make this a weekly thing, but she has got a very interesting forward use of her sexuality that if she was a man and Rip was a woman in this interview, we would be very turned off by how he was speaking to this interview candidate. The several pointed, you've got an appetite, and that's a very attractive quality. And she literally does a full, hip thrust forward when she says, earn handsomely and my, not only money, but my loyalty. And she does a thrust thing with it. It's interesting. It's a very masculine thing she's doing, which we've talked about. And we were just talking about how when it's business, she is no different than how you would expect very ivory tower men who are the kings of their castles to behave in the same way. It's just interesting because you don't usually get to see it in a woman doing it, but I did you pick up on that? Am I picking up weird things that are actually not there?
Man or woman, I think it's very unprofessional to come on to your candidate in an interview setting that seems completely out of place. And again, it sort of gives me that vibe of is something up with Beulah? Is there something going on with her brain that is pushing against the side of her head that's making her say and do things that just seem what are you doing? I'm not trying to put it through the 2026 lens and try to act you can only act a certain way, or an ageist lens where it's if she was a younger woman, would we have the same comments? None of those things. I just think it was wildly unprofessional, but I think she's doing a lot of things that are unprofessional. For all of her yelling at Oriana about you have to be perfect, look at her behavior across the board.
For all of her complaining to everyone who will listen, including Rip in this interview, about mismanagement being a bugaboo to her and inefficiencies and non-professionalism, look at how you're running it. You've burned through 3 foremen this year alone. Are you not looking inwardly at how you're running this business for why that may be? It's a very strange interview, especially when you look at this business, this 10 Petal Ranch business has a problem. We've talked every episode about, you made a great point, I think 2 episodes ago, about how their money doesn't seem to be solving problems like you would think, like they think it should be. All of that power that seems to be fleeting. Beth says you're easy prey and you know it. It's only going to take the strongest whiff of a predator to come take you down. It all kind of paints a picture when you take it all together about Beulah sitting maybe like emperor with no clothes on kind of thing.
It seems just very sloppy too. What a strange way to be running your business. I didn't know how he felt about the fact that Rip stayed for dinner. I had a whole issue with that where I was sort of like...
She kind of made it seem like he couldn't go, though, right? When she says, of course you will, you got an appetite.
Which is very unprofessional. And like, you shouldn't be doing that to your employees. So...
Let's talk about Rip's actual work day, though. I noted right away Rip was wearing his Yellowstone work shirt and coat, which we haven't seen him wear, I don't think, this show yet. He put it on for this today, and I had the realization, oh, it's his uniform of when he is a foreman of some other person's ranch, which was kind of heartbreaking. Like, I make you bet he had ceremoniously, as ceremoniously or ritualistically as Rip can be, had probably tucked those Yellowstone clothes into some drawer, thinking he would never have to wear them again, because now he was running his own ranch. He was his own master of his own domain. And here he is having to pull them out and go work on someone else's ranch. That has to be so demoralizing on some level, especially when you take into account Beth talking to Everett about how this was his time, this was his chance, and it was supposed to be his ranch, and how much he has lost and sacrificed. I don't know. I found that very heartbreaking to start with. But talk to me, what did you think of Rip's actual day and his going about his investigating, which was that intentional?
I think he came in with the intent to cull out, any of the unnecessary fat that they had going on there at the bunkhouse. There were too many guys. It was very apparent when they were actually like in the ring and they were sitting there trying to wean the cattle. It absolutely felt like there are way too many guys in here. They're almost bumping into each other with their horses.
Literally bumping into each other.
We can trim the fat. Like, we don't need to have this many guys. So, no, I don't think he was investigating anything. I think he was trying to figure out who is a trusted ranch hand, who can he believe in, who can he, actually follow orders when he asks them to, who is going to start, roughing each other up, who's going to start picking on each other. I mean, I thought it was kind of crazy that those two guys would do that on the first day that a new person was in the area. Like, what a lack of boundaries these people have. Like, Rip's gonna go home. Y'all could fight each other later. Like, how ridiculous that you're gonna have this conversation in front of your brand new boss. It just shows how absolutely sloppy this operation is. And I thought he handled it well.
I agree there were too many cooks in the kitchen. That weaning scene where they were literally bumping into each other, but it kept being Chet at the source of all these antagonisms. Starting from when Rip first came into the bunkhouse that morning, all the men hopped to. Rip said, 10 minutes, on your horses, we're going. Walks out with his coffee. All of the guys, Tommy, Austin, every other guy that we don't have a name for, just went to work. Chet was all, I know you're from the gas station, and like, what the fuck? And this is bullshit. And then it just continued all day. Tommy says to Chet in the yard, he's like, well, it was way overdue to wean these calves. And Chet was like, don't you think I know that, Tommy? Like, well, you didn't do it. You had how many days as foreman? You decided to beat the shit out of Austin and put him in the hospital with a broken rib and wrist. This guy is getting us to work. It was interesting because in Yellowstone, no one fought. It was Rip's rule. If you're going to fight someone, you come fight me. That was how we did it. If you needed to fist fight, you come fight me. Rip doesn't know these guys yet, so that rule isn't in place yet. So it was interesting just to watch him on horseback.
I also think Rip is too old for that rule.
True, but he looks very imposing just watching
it
and just kind of let the other men kind of break it up. But all of that and hearing them screaming about Wes and Whitney, Rip is smart. Rip is good at what he does, and he is good at picking up clues. So I really enjoyed him sitting outside, and all the men file by, and he doesn't acknowledge them until Austin is left, and he's like, you come sit. And he gets the story about the fact that Wes was disappeared, and it was, you pointed this out, that it was the timing really, right, that clicked for Rip.
Oh, that's when I saw the synapses hit, man. I mean, it was like literally, he was like, when did this guy go missing? And they're like a couple weeks ago, and
bing, bing, bing.
The light bulb literally lit up over his head, and it was like, oh my God.
So I think he's probably going to shit can Chet at the end of that day anyway. I think knowing that information and having heard and witnessed that fight earlier in the day, it all fell into place that whatever Rob Will's thing was, Chet was right along with him. And I thought it was kind of ballsy of Rip to out of nowhere ask Beulah about who is Rob Will exactly, but he put him right together with Chet because he recognized the same way Chet recognized him from the gas station. he clearly recognized Chet from the gas station and associates him with Rob Will. So right out of the gate, even before he had said anything, as soon as he saw Chet, he was thinking that guy is gone by the end of today. I got to think that bunkhouse is going to function much better now with Rip running it and Chet gone. I think he did make the bunkhouse better. Let's listen to Chet complaining to Joaquin at the end of the day.
Why?
What happened?
You know what the fuck happened. I did the job just like Miss Beulah told me, and y'all up and replaced me?
Circumstances have changed.
Well, I'll tell you what hadn't changed. A dead fucking cowboy named Wes Ayers.
That sounds dangerously close to a threat. And you were the last one to see him alive.
Your brother pulled the trigger.
Are you sure? Because you had the gun. It's hard to tell whose prints they're gonna find.
You threatening me now?
Just stating facts.
Well, here's a fact for you. I didn't forget about y'all's cattle. And I didn't forget why Wes took that bullet.
There's two ways to leave the ranch, Chet. Choose wisely.
Chet has to wind up dead, right? I don't understand how he's still alive, given he's such a loose thread. And if Yellowstone has ever taught us anything, loose threads wind up at the train station or somewhere else. He has become too problematic. This scene, this money that was just passed off to him, he's exiting too loudly, and he knows too much information.
I guess, it needs to be an entire frame up, though. Like, it needs to be, oh my God, we found out that Chet killed Wes. So in a heated situation, this whole situation played out. Like, suicide note saying, I killed Wes. It would certainly clean up the Wes situation for them if they did blame Chet and let Chet die.
The only problem is, and we'll finish off Chet, Rob, Will, and Joaquin before we get to Rip's dinner with Beulah, is that Chet celebrating or commiserating the end of his career at Ten Petal Ranch is doing coke in a motel room when knock, 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 old Rob Will is back. I gotta tell you, I was hoping we would go some more episodes without him returning. Were you surprised to see him here?
Surprised? No. Ugh, yes. When he stuck his head in and I was like, oh God, like, not him. I was not ready at all. And clearly Beulah's not going to be ready. She said indefinite vacation, so she's not expecting him back. This answers the question. Clearly he could sign himself out. So here he is. Unless, is it possible that old Joaquin signed him out thinking, well, I can't have Rip and Beth and all this. What I need to do is bring Rob Will back and he's going to stir some shit up. And if anyone's going to burn Rip out, it would be Rob Will, not Beulah.
That's interesting. It's a possibility. I don't know. I mean, it seems like Rob will be the only ally Chet has right now. Everyone else immediately turned the door on him, which I was surprised at. I will tell you, because he has this information and was a witness to this thing that Rob Will did. I was expecting Beulah and Joaquin to want to keep Chet close so they know what he was doing. I actually expected there to be a little pushback on Rip getting rid of him. I mean, Beulah is going to say, like, he's not bad, he's just over his skis. Like, she's kind of defending his ineptitude. They're already got Whitney in the wind, who is asking too many dangerous questions. Chet actually knows information, and so it makes him a danger. So I'm a little surprised that they actually let him go so easily, which makes me think that they're already planning on killing him. He's too much of a dangling thread. It seems like the Jacksons can off people pretty much willy-nilly. Now, that being said, Joaquin does go see Sheriff Wade. Were you surprised at the actual amount of work Sheriff Wade has put into finding Whitney Ayers?
I was. There was a lot of things he listed off that I didn't expect that he would be doing. I didn't think he would be watching her bank account or checking the toll tag stuff or checking with her next of kin. You know, locally, sure, even like if they knew like 1 or 2 levels out, like, a town or 2 over, I really didn't think he was going to go that far. So yeah, I was surprised. And I mean, it does show us too that he must have some amount of reach, though I don't know how strong it is because he didn't locate her.
My real question from this conversation is, he's like, there are 2 possibilities, Joaquin. Either she's dead, which doesn't seem to be the bad option for these guys, or something you'll like a whole lot less. Caroline, I rack my brain. I'm not sure what that means. What could she possibly be doing by not being found that they're going to like a whole lot less?
Well, I think she could be talking to federal agents. I think that she could get away completely. Either of those two things would be negatives for the Jacksons.
Because she already made it to Oklahoma or somewhere else.
I don't think Oklahoma's far enough. But yeah, I mean, further, I mean, could be out of the country, you know?
Oh, that's true.
It would be easier to get to Mexico than a lot of other places.
Talking to the feds made sense to me, but it seems, I mean, if like they put her in witness relocation or something, that seems too much too fast, and she has too little concrete information.
It's just a missing persons. You know, I mean, I was joking with you that less has been done with Nancy Guthrie than has been done with Whitney Ayers, and that just seems crazy. Like, I mean, there's not enough going on here. If the feds already had a case open on the Jacksons, that I could see where if she went running to somewhere else, I don't know where she could go. Because again, like, what kind of pull does anybody have here? I don't know. Is she running to the governor? Like, that's the way it would play out in Montana, but I don't know what's going on here. Like where is she running to? Who could she go talk to? That would be bigger. I know it's like, of course, there's a lot of people bigger than Sheriff Handy, but who does Whitney have access to? Who's going to listen to just a missing person in a small
With
town?
a garbage bag of clothes and a screaming baby.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I was reminded here, though, because at the end of this conversation, Wade says, "Get out of my chair," and Joaquin's parting shot is, "Just remember who paid for that chair." It just reminded me that you had this point, and I think I've already brought it up once in this episode, this idea that the Jacksons' money just isn't producing a lot of results. They've got all this money, and Whitney Ayers still isn't found, and Sheriff Wade is actually doing things, and they still can't find her. So what good is your money and your influence if you're actually not getting results for it? Is it just the ineptitude, or is it just that they're not nearly as powerful? Like, they're more of a paper tiger. They're just not as powerful as they think they are.
I think maybe they were at some point, and I think that power has slipped away. I mean, if they were running this exotic game hunting lodge kind of thing, maybe they had very powerful people walking through there who didn't want their secrets revealed, who didn't want their business out there. So again, they had that sort of ammunition on very important people, but that seems like that happened a while ago. You know, remember what I was saying in the last time? Maybe we're not joining this story because the Duttons moved to town. Maybe we're joining the story because this is when finally there's a stress fracture in the Jackson house, and that's what we're witnessing happening. Like, their final moments when people are going to start just falling apart.
Let's get to dinner between Rip and Beulah.
I was 15 years old shoveling shit for her father when I met her.
Oh, bottom of the food chain, you wooed John Dutton's daughter?
Well, every dog has its day.
Well, good on you. Tell me about her.
Well, beautiful, intelligent, fierce, tender, raw. A bit like you.
Cheers to that.
The bit like you was real masterstroke.
Ew.
It was a real masterstroke of charm on Rip's part. But I agree with you so much. Don't be
Ew.
saying anything about her to this woman.
It felt so gross. I hated every second of it. I didn't want him to say anything about her. I felt like the more that he was actually saying stuff like raw, tender, the more I was barfing in my mouth. Just like you, dude, that's just flirting. That's just flirting
Well,
back.
he was about to negotiate his
That's just playing the
salary,
game.
right? I mean,
Yes, so he's playing the game.
that's
and the
why he
lady's
took the
playing
dinner,
game
right? He
too.
called Beth and said, "I got to stay for dinner." Or he said, "I'm going to stay for dinner." He doesn't say I have to. He says, "I'm going to stay for dinner." And she says, "Do what you got to do."
And he needed to download what happened from the day. I mean, it's sort of like your first day performance
Sure.
review kind of thing. That's kind of what I was talking about. Men would go sit down and they'd say, "Tell me what's going on in my bunkhouse." And they'd sit down and they'd just talk. She has to cook him dinner. It has to be a tea party because it's a woman. But do you see what I'm saying, though?
I do. Very much so.
John Dutton wouldn't be cooking him a brisket to talk business. No. They'd sit on the porch and say, "Tell me what's going wrong in my business." And they would have a business discussion. But Beulah has to couch it in this dinner party. And that's where, like, I feel like Beulah, that's old fashioned. And like, you really don't have to do this anymore. And I feel like that's what Beth was even saying. Like, you're kind of living in a different generation right now. Like, we can just sit down and talk bluntly. I did not like any of the stuff talking about Beth. And honestly, the second she said, tell me about Beth, I would have turned off like immediately. I'd have been like, actually, let's talk about work. But he has to play the niceties too because he's playing the game.
It's all a game. All right, let's get to the last Dutton, Wheeler Dutton here. Do you think he goes by Wheeler-Dutton, Carter? Or do you think he just goes by Dutton?
Probably just Dutton.
That's probably my guess too.
Although I did see an interview with Cole Hauser where someone asked, why is it not called the Wheeler Ranch? And the answer he gave was that it was a namesake situation and named after John Dutton, not that it was like they're the Duttons on this ranch, but it was a namesake situation and they were honoring John Dutton by naming the ranch after him. So that's just a little trivia for all of us.
Which makes sense, but also from a business standpoint, as we have seen just in this episode alone, the name Dutton still carries a lot of weight. So you hear Dutton, you'll be like, wait, are you related to the Duttons of Montana, to the Yellowstone Duttons? I feel like we've seen a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise know who John Dutton was or the Dutton or Yellowstone Ranch was, do in fact know. I mean, even Giles, the food guy, they weren't selling beef to the Swexan. And he knew who John Dutton and the Yellowstone, what the Yellowstone Ranch was. So just from a PR brand purpose, I guess it makes a lot of sense. Carter has bought Ariana to meet Xena, the African leopard, with Miguel in tow and Dwight sitting in a kiddie pool. If you had asked me to paint the most bizarre picture I could of the scene, I don't even know if I come up with this one. This was a treat. What did you think of this? That Carter is bringing Oriana to this secret African leopard, which I can't imagine Dwight was cool with, but the fact that Miguel is there watching it.
Well, I was surprised that Miguel's not just a ride. I was surprised that he's actually like a bodyguard kind of situation or a babysitter. Dwight sitting in the kiddie pool was somewhere between comical and disturbing. I don't know which. I can't decide. The whole thing was a strange scene. I guess it just speaks to Carter's whole, like, isn't this cool? Like, I was kind of getting the Beavis and Butthead, like, laugh in my head of, like, look how cool this is, like, that kind of thing. Oriana was being, won over by it, I guess. So I guess he knew his audience, right? But when Miguel said it's time to go and like totally cut it all off, what was your thinking then?
Well, I think that was enough of us being here with this animal, which given this exotic hunting lodge thing, all I can think of is that Xena, the African leopard, must have been on Ten Petal Ranch during this exotic hunting lodge period. And Miguel, as being the closest, lapdog bodyguard of Beulah, would know that. I think that it's the time to go. It wasn't like we've been here long enough, let's go. It was Oriana, it is time to go. It wasn't asking. He was saying it's time to go. I think he went and told them. I think they're the reason. This little trip is the reason the police come raiding Dwight's property later that day.
I agree. Because they came up so fast. Later on when we find out from Sheriff Handy that it's like insurance fraud and scamming elderly and stuff like that, you don't run up like a raid like that for something like that.
No, they were raiding that animal.
This whole situation was very clearly about what Miguel was dealing with, and that he was just deciding this was like we couldn't have this situation going on anymore.
Cannot have Oriana connected to this illegal animal, which may or may not, and probably is connected to a very shady past of Ten Petal. I think he was doing cleanup duty for Beulah and the Jacksons and Ten Petal Ranch here. Later on, Miguel does show a little tenderness when at the end of the episode, I know I'm doing this a little bit out of order, but it's just Miguel related. I actually thought it was very kind or kind of empathetic of him that he turned the headlights down so Carter could sob in secret or in privacy to Oriana, and they could have their kind of tender moment. Am I being a sap here?
Was it guilt?
Ooh, I hadn't considered guilt.
Because if you're right, and he's the one that basically made the call, then was he like feeling pretty shitty that this kid just got shot at?
Oh man, I hadn't considered that. Man, Miguel secretly super complex and this
I don't know.
This character that we're not really like, he has like a total of like 4 lines so far in the show.
I don't know, but it seemed like something that this man doesn't need to do. And so like, what other reason does he have unless he was sitting there feeling like, oh God, I didn't mean for this kid to get wrapped up into this mess.
I think Dwight's going to give Carter some good life advice in his final words he has, as it turns out, to Carter in this episode. But before that, there's something very telling about Carter and his emotional state and his maturity state. Oriana mentions, I saw Rip at Tempedal this morning, or I heard Rip was at Tempedal today. Carter's first thing is, he can't know I'm not going to school. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're here showing your lady and Dwight in the kiddie pool, your exotic stolen animal, and you're sneaking out and doing all this, and you're worried about him dad finding out you're not going to school. Very mature. Definitely exhibits that, like, you are a man in control of your own destiny. If that's your response to, I heard Rip was at Tempedal. He can't know I was there. I'm not at school.
Well, he can't figure out if he's a boy. Is he a man? Is he a Muppet of a man? We don't know. We can't figure it out. So,
Muppet of a man.
You don't know that song?
I do.
Am I a
I'm singing
Muppet,
it in
or
my
am I a
head.
man, or am I a Muppet of a man? Like,
head.
I can't quite figure him out yet, but that's who I basically feel like what he's doing right now. Listen, when your adrenaline is pumping like that, when you just saw a man die, you looked into his eyes as he died, and then you sat and had this like really serious conversation with the sheriff, of course he's going to revert to like the most meek and like whatever version of himself,
this was before
right?
all
like,
that, though. That he says.
No, I know. But where we see him by the end, he vacillates the whole time, right? I think you saw the entire spectrum of him today in this no good, very bad day for Dwight, as he calls his own self. Like, he put an A in there. Like, do not be like Dwight, like the way he said it. I mean, that I actually had a moment where I was like enjoying Dwight when he starts running from the cops. There was actually a hot moment when he ran through that barn where I was like, okay, he suddenly became entertaining. Then I was like, oh, and it's over. And that was awful.
He gives Carter two pieces of advice that Carter would do very well to listen to. The first I don't have a clip for. It was just when he said, that girl, meaning Oriana, is going to break your heart into a million pieces. And it may feel like the best feeling ever, but it's going to happen. He does call him Sly Dog, which I think maybe takes some edge off of listening to it. But I think that's I think that is 100% going to happen. I think Oriana is going to break Carter into a million pieces. But then he gives him some important life advice about living this hard-nosed, not going to school fugitive life. Let's take a listen.
How long are you gonna keep up this fugitive's life?
Huh?
The folks ain't changed their mind about that school thing yet, have they?
Ain't up to them. Well, else says I'm a man.
Maybe they just don't want you growing up so fast. Growing up fast is highly fucking overrated.
Wish I could go back to Montana.
That's the thing. You got time, Chief. You got time to discover a lot of things. You don't fucking realize how young you are till you get older, and then it's too fucking late. Why not let your folks look after you for a little while longer until you get things, or some things, figured out? Otherwise, you're just a fucking day trasher without a horse.
I can fend for myself, all right? It's the only thing I'm pretty good at.
All right, that's good. Good for you.
He had a little sad voice there at the end. He was like, you're not listening to me. But when he says you're just going to be a day trasher without a horse, like, that hit me. Look at this man. He has no reason to tell you wrong because he's proof of what he is saying. He didn't listen to his mama. He told her a white lie, and look, he's like spending his day in a kiddie pool. Carter.
No, and that's why this episode was so good, is because I feel like we finally understood the utility of Dwight. He was able to explain all this stuff to Carter. And, you know, you and I have had this conversation when guys, especially, but girls too, get to be a certain age, their parents' voice just becomes this like meow, meow, meow. And it has to be an outside party that says some things to this kid that makes it actually sink in. And so for Carter to have actually heard this, and it's sad that it turns out to be Dwight's Dwight's like basically last
His
swan
very
song
final
here.
words are, listen to your mama, don't be like a Dwight.
But the point of his last sentiments was really, you know, like, you don't need to grow up so fast. You can slow down. All of this stuff is not so important what you think is important. Just go back and listen to your mom. Like, this was the utility of Dwight.
Yes.
And we asked at the very beginning, why did you introduce this character? Why would you make us feel so uneasy about Dwight for so long? And then also, though, now Carter is tied up in this whole legal situation with the sheriff. And now we have had an opportunity because of Dwight to see how corrupt Sheriff Handy is. I mean, when he's yelling that he pulled a knife on me, oh, I saw it, says like the other cop and everything, like, oh no. We were kind of going with the idea that, oh, okay, Sheriff Handy wasn't taking the Jackson money, therefore he's not a corrupt guy. No, not at all. We just watched him kill this guy, you know, for whatever reason, because we're not 100% sure yet. I know you're saying it's the exotic animal. Maybe it is tying back to the Jackson Ranch. Don't know exactly what Sheriff Handy was needing to stop in that moment. Right. But whatever it was, he was willing to lie about it in order to get this done and basically convince Carter, like, we can keep your parents out of it, provided you also lie for me. Well, now we've created this entire other situation for Carter. Now the stakes are much higher. And he actually has a storyline outside of just sleeping around or smoking pot, going to the rodeo. Like, now he has a storyline where there's like this actual legal issue, far more interesting. We made it all more complex. Thanks, Dwight. You actually were an interesting character in the end.
Were you shocked that he continued running at Dwight? One, that he got up when the cops had given him an order. He got up and disobeyed them and started running towards Dwight. But even after that cop shot at him, he continued running towards Dwight.
It felt really naive and sadly innocent and foolish. Like, he had no idea the ramifications, the consequences of his actions. I mean, he really didn't seem to know. And there was a moment when the way that the cop car's siren, the light was shining on him, that it made like a red reflection on the side of his shirt. And I was like, did Carter actually get shot for like a second? Because he kind of recoiled in this way. He even kind of looked down at his shirt.
Oh my God. He made like an noise.
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, we don't know for sure. He hasn't pulled his shirt up. We don't know that there's not a graze or something there. Like, we don't know. I mean, I don't think he was shot, but maybe he was grazed by a bullet or something that could be seen by Rip later or something else. I don't know. Something that might need medical attention that didn't get it. Don't know.
When he gets tackled by the cop, kind of flying tackled, and then his face is facing Dwight like inches away as Dwight's bleeding out. And if you guys are wondering why we're saying about the knife, like, it's dark, so maybe you weren't paying attention, maybe you missed it. They do a very pointed shot to the knife in its sheath on Dwight's hip. Because when the cops are talking about it, that he had a knife, he pulled a knife, he was waving a knife at me, Carter looks down where he knows Dwight keeps his knife, and you could see it in its sheath. But him crying into the dirt, and it's just very sad. But also, like, that could have been you. You just ran from a cop who was shooting at you, threatening to shoot at you. That could have been you. You were so lucky. Imagine Beth and Rip getting that phone call. What your death would have done for what? So you can exercise your independence. When he says in that clip we just played, I can take care of I can fend for myself. It's the only thing I'm pretty good at. Buddy, you haven't had to fend for yourself for 5 full years now. Yes, you may have been an Oliver Street urchin up into your early teenage years, but for 5 years, Beth and Rip have given you everything. There has been no fending for yourself. I think that skill is very atrophied. I think how you're living your life is proof that skill is very atrophied.
I think running towards gunfire is proof that you're not ready to do this.
Right. I mean, when Sheriff Wade says Dwight was a drunkard, an insurance fraudster, a thief who stole from the sick and elderly, and Carter's only response is, he was my friend, made my heart break a little bit.
Yeah, because he didn't have anyone to talk to. Like, the whole time he was like, I just wanted to get wrapped up into something. Like, you know, he was just looking for anything to be doing.
And just very young man, very kid response when he says, I just don't want my folks to know. Which is exactly what Wade wants to hear, right? Because now he's like, well, if you weren't there tonight, so you can't say shit about whether the knife was drawn or not, then your folks never have to know. It's kind of a win-win from Sheriff Wade's point. But yes, I hope Carter takes in how corrupt all this is.
What I hope is that he actually understands that really bad things can happen to good people.
Yes.
Even people like him. Because at this point, he hasn't learned that lesson at all. He's been playing a lot of games about vandalizing Hoyt's truck, showing up there, driving away, ha, 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 let's go smoke pot, let's go have sex, let's go to whatever. I'm going to hang out and skip school. It's white. And there's been no consequences. Now your friend is dead. Now your parents could very well find out all the things you've been involved with. What I hope is that he learns a lesson here. He does not need to go back to school. I don't need that storyline to happen. But he needs to have a conversation with Beth and Rip and be like, I would like to work full time. I would like to get my GED and take some classes online at the community college. Whatever he needs to do, because I don't know what they have as opportunities for him in this town, education-wise. There's things that need to happen now that he's experienced this. And if they don't do that, I'm going to be really disappointed, because then this storyline didn't have any ramifications for him.
Beth, at the beginning of the episode, Beth and her talking to Rip, where we learn that she must have told Rip about their conversation, she says, I was wrong to keep him away. So it seems like on her end of it, she has done some reflecting and thought that she was wrong in keeping him away. So maybe there is common ground. This is the right time for Carter to bring this conversation up, but he has to be the man that he keeps telling everyone he is and actually have that conversation with his parents. This is my question, and I think this is the question for the final 4 episodes of the season. Carter is at a crossroads in this episode. With Dwight being dead now, where does Carter go? Does he heed Dwight's literal final advice and the sheriff's advice? Or does he continue down this delinquent path? Do him and Oriana double down on vagrancy and living life off of the path? Or does he go back to Beth and Rip and try to become the man that he keeps telling everyone he is within the rules that they have set forward?
You already know what I'm hoping for.
I know, but I really think it's 50-50 on what happens to him. It's going to be interesting.
And, I wonder if the Jackson's house and everything going on over there is going to suddenly seem awfully small if we've got Rip and Beth hanging out over there. But then that also leaves the Dutton Ranch completely empty during the day.
It sure does, because Zachariah and Azul don't seem to have a whole lot to do. And they're not going into their house anyway. I mean, at most they were just in the yard or down by the horses or whatever. Okay, so we've got to the end of the day. The final thing to talk about is the plan. Is the exchange of information, and finally Rip coming forward and being honest with his wife after 3 episodes.
What you up to, honey?
A plan. If we can't afford the life that we want right now, we'll make it work together. You give me a week, I'll know everything there is to know about Beulah Jackson.
Well, let me tell you about Beulah Jackson. About 3 weeks ago, I found a dead body on our property. It floated over from the Tempedal. Well, I took care of it. But we need to be careful with this family.
Why didn't you tell me?
Peace, I guess.
Well, peace will have to wait.
And then she kind of twitches a smile. It's a little sick in the head, but it is what these two are. Peace is not in their cards. I mean, we started the episode with this conversation. Talk to me about Rip coming clean here and Beth asking, why didn't you tell me? How did this sit with you?
I think it's exactly the way that Beth would have handled it had he told her to begin with, which was just bolstering our argument that Chad Feehan didn't understand this couple. There was no reason to think that Beth was going to fly off the handle whenever she found out this information, whether it was day of. Even now, look, she has to deal with the fact that he lied about this because now she knows, you handled it and I've been asking if you're okay. And she still didn't get upset or fly off the handle. Yeah, she asked, why didn't you tell me? I don't consider that any type of negative response. I think that was an honest question. Was there something that I was giving off? Was there something that you thought I was going to do? Whatever the reasons could have been. that she was giving him an opportunity to answer that. I'm sure because she would adjust and say, like, if I was making you feel like you couldn't tell me, I want to be clear, like, I'm never going to jump down your neck on something like this. Like, you can tell me anything. So for me, all it did was make Pod Clubhouse look perfection because we're over here saying Beth's not going to scream and yell at no matter what point that Rip says. That's not her character. She's not going to scream and yell. So don't make her look like she needs to have information kept from her. So I'm just glad, honestly, thank God, so much has come out and is just out there now.
I mean, literally in the same breath as she's saying to him, if we can't afford the life we want to live right now, then we'll do it together. Their whole thing is do it together. And they're literally doing it together now. I mean, her capital T, capital P, the plan seems to be infiltrate the 10-Petal Ranch and then bring it down, take it over, get enough dirt to get them out of the way so they can seize power. I'm not sure, what is it, the gnomes from South Park? It's like, steel socks, ? Profit. I'm not sure what the middle ? Is, like, or what her aim is to get to profit, but she's got some kind of plan. And I think if people are listening to us and saying, well, why don't you think she's going to do the 5 years? I mean, she's telling Beulah all of these, like 3 years, household name. And it's because she's saying in this breath, give me 1 week and I will know all of her secrets. Beth does not seem to be committed to working at 10-Petal or for Beulah Jackson for very long. If she's saying, I just need 1 week to do all of this, that sounds too quick for whatever her ultimate goal is.
I think she's going to gather information really, really quickly. As soon as she has access to the books, she's going to start unraveling things really fast.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're going to have to give her access to the books in order to try to figure out, like, what's the strategy, what's worked, what's not worked. They're going to have to talk about a lot of stuff, that the good, bad, and the ugly.
Unless they're keeping really well done double tally books, log books on the animals, the whole thing that Chet was threatening Joaquin about, and what we heard Wes saying to Rob Will before he killed him about your tally book is wrong, and you've got earmarked cattle that don't match up for what you're actually bringing to auction, all of that. Beth is going to have to get access to that if she's going to increase their profit margins and pivot them into a brand new business. And again, the Mariano of it all, trying to get rid of the Mexican crossbreed cattle, that's a whole other issue when Beth tries to put that into market. So this episode was excellent. I think it answered a lot of questions. I think it brought a lot of things to light. And I think it set up the next 4 episodes of this season.
I completely agree. I think this was the best episode that we've seen yet, and I hope to see a lot more like it. This is Caroline.
This is Mike. Thank you for listening to the Yellowstone Podcast, Dutton Ranch. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and rate, review, and subscribe. While you're there, please leave us a 5-star review. We would love for you to do so, because if you do leave us a 5-star review, we will read it on the air, and also it helps in promotion of the show.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.